So what's a bit of regional history that you think might fall into that category?
Like I said, I grew up in Missouri. So, St. Louis was, well, still has the nickname the gateway to the West.
Okay.
So if you were to come out to East Central Missouri, that would probably be the thing that you would gravitate towards. This is where Lewis and Clark started their expedition up
Sure.
the Missouri River. And it was kind of like this hub. As far as like where I'm at, so I don't live in St. Louis, but still, I guess you could maybe kind of consider it in my region. There's a lot of iron ore mining.
Okay.
In the area where I live, so we have all these old smeltering furnaces that are around. They look like something out of an Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, interesting.
So it's kind of cool to kind of dig into, the history behind some of those old communities and learn about how people lived, in the 1800s and
Sure.
and things like that. And we've got Civil War history here too. But it's different than the Civil War history, like out where you all are on the East Coast.
Sure. Yeah.
We, out on the East Coast, there's a lot of, big, huge, epic battles and, the formations that you typically think of, whenever you watch Civil War movies. Out here, it was just a lot of bushwhacking and, burning people's farms down and, murdering
Contraband.
people.
More spread out.
Oh, man, it was, I have an ancestor who was, has kind of a neat story. There's a highway, a state highway. It's probably about 30 miles from me. And off on the side of the road, there's a Confederate grave marker. And
Wow.
It says, "Here lies the bodies of 3 unknown Confederate soldiers." Well, my great-great-great-grandma buried those men in that grave.
Wow.
And there's actually 2. The grave marker's wrong. There's actually 2 in there instead of 3. But the story is, her husband was off to war. This whole area was filled with a bunch of, Confederate guerrillas, and it was just bordering on anarchy around here. It's a dangerous place to be. But she overnight would run supplies through the lines because women they wouldn't suspect a woman.
There's a great article about Missouri women running.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
oh, really?
I have to say, I'll have to send it to you, JD. I read it in grad school, so I have it. I had to read it for school.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, my great-great-great-grandma would have been one of those women. So she was getting like quinine medicine and food supplies and stuff like that.
Holy cow.
Smuggling them back and forth across the lines. Well, one day she came across these dead Confederate soldiers and knew that if these Confederate guerrillas came and found these dead Confederates, that they would likely come into the town and burn it down or hang some of the men or something like that. And they said she was a short woman, but real strong and spunky. And so she buried those men there at that grave.
That's
and
awesome. Did you do a did you do an episode on that?
Not yet. I'm going to at some point.
Yeah. So was that kind of like that's like the perfect example of like regional
folklore.
family history, right? That's like super local, super hyper relevant. So was that just kind of like a family story that was kind of just verbally passed down?
Yep, that was one of my grandpa. My grandpa took me out there and showed me whenever I was really young.
How
we were
cool.
turkey hunting, and in Missouri, you have to stop hunting at 1:00. So after 1:00, we got done turkey hunting, and he said, "Hey," he said, "let's run out here, and I'm going to show you something." And I was 5 years old whenever he took me out there. And it was really funny. I hadn't been back. My grandpa passed away a couple years ago. But I wanted to show my kids. And
Yeah.
I was able to take them right back to that spot. Like, it had that much of an impression on me.
How
So I hadn't been
cool.
there in, over 35 years.
Yeah.
But was able to take them back. I've got another episode where I go to one of those old smeltering furnaces, and I'm talking, it's back in the woods.
Yeah.
It's a place that very few people would know about unless you're maybe from around here.
Sure.
But that was another one where my grandpa took me there whenever we were turkey hunting, whenever I was 5 years old. And I mean, it was just burned into my memory, and I was able to, go right back to the exact spot. Took my
That's
son there and showed
awesome.
him.
That's family history that's passed down. That's really great.
Yeah, that's so interesting too, that like the more, again, from the non-history buff guy here, right, the more I learn about history, and we either come across memorials or monuments, and Jen is educating me multiple times because she talks about it before we go, and then we have to record it, and then I'm editing, and so I actually learned a lot more history than I ever expected. But I learned about not just the famous battles, not just the big names that we all hear about, right? The generals and the Pickett's charge and this, that, and the other, but also all the supporters and the women and the kids and the communities and what they did during these monumental times and these dangerous times. And like, I mean, your great grandma was like a super badass.
She's burying guys in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
To protect her town, because she knew that there would be retribution if they were found.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to me, that's the kind of stuff that, until you really kind of get to kind of live in some of this history stuff, or you watch some of the good videos that I'll say, well, the three of us make. I'll just throw that out there. I think we're working to get up to your level, JD. We're getting there. But
I think your stuff is great.
Thank you.
Thank you, JD.
If you get to watch, that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed. I have enjoyed about doing this history stuff is learning those little tidbits and seeing like, man, there's so many more key players in these large historical events and times and periods than we ever really realized, that a lot of people realize. And your family, right? You've got family that are point directly to that.
That's a great.
That's really
I'll
cool.
find that article for you, because it probably you'll be surprised. Like, this mentions my grandma.
Oh man, if
It was a
does, that'll
great
be
article.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I don't know if it's kind of interesting as we've been sitting here talking. I didn't even think about this until just a little bit ago. But if you'll notice, whenever I'm talking about where I've learned a lot of my history and stuff like that, I haven't really mentioned anything about a classroom. A lot of it are people in my family or friends or things like that who took an interest in invested in me, and passed these stories down to me, or took me to places that would help spark my interest. So yeah, there's definitely a place for classroom learning and everything like that, and I think that's important. But where the biggest part of my learning has taken place has been outside of a classroom.
Absolutely. That's why I love to be there. I love to be in the presence of where history happened, right?
Yeah.
I love to see the artifact or be in the location, and that's why I think protecting artifacts is so important as well, because it helps tell the story. But I totally agree with you, and I love that, like, the places that you find, like even when you went to Gettysburg and you found the military museum, like the things that I wouldn't even think to go to. And you went, and now I see it every time I go there. I'm like, I have to go there because JD went there. But I just love that, because to me, protecting the artifact is so important, to help people feel. People want to feel the presence of the story, right? They want to feel what inspired people, what made them act the way they acted. Because like Scott said, history touched everybody. Events were touching everybody. Everybody was a part of it in some way. They were interacting. They were all playing in this part of what was going on around them. So it isn't just one group of people who are doing something, it's everybody.
I'll ask you one last question here, JD, and then we'll we'll kind of close this thing out, but we'll hang out and chat as long as we want.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Jen did mention, some of your videos. We talked a little bit about your videos. For me and for the audience listening or watching, we are going to try to publish this as a video podcast as well. That's like one video that's kind of really either surprised you or kind of has stood out to you that you've either enjoyed or was a bit of history that you were like, man, I didn't expect that going in, but coming out, it kind of just really stood out to you. And you've done a fair amount of videos.
So many.
Oh, man. One video that has surprised me